Hello everyone, welcome back to ManaTutor MTG Draft. Today we're going to be going over the white commons and uncommons, but if you haven't already checked out our previous episodes, check it out, starting with the one on lands and artifacts. We go over our grading scale there and how we grade from A to F, and we then have went over multicolored cards and Wooburg starting with black, and now we're on white. So with that, before we get started, I just want to remind everyone to like and subscribe. Put comments down below with any questions that you have, and we will respond to them. And with that, let's kick it off. Starting off with Escape from Orthanc. For 1 white mana, we have an instant. Target creature gets +1/+3 and gains flying until end of turn. Untap it. This is a trick that I think is in the playable camp. It's a little bit worse than the Arachnoid adaptation that we saw in March of the Machine before, but I like 1 mana untap a creature, give it flying and +1/+3, and it can have some purpose both on defense and on offense even. So what do you think?
Yeah. Well, what's your grade?
Oh,
Is it
C
playable?
minus. Sorry, I got a C minus.
All right. C minus. Yeah. So I'm a little higher than you, I think, and I think this is pretty standard for our sort of difference on tricks.
Yep.
I have it as a C. I think it's good. I would probably pick a couple of these if I'm in white, just because I think it gives you more options, more flexibility. I probably wouldn't necessarily pick it too high, but yeah, I mean, I agree with you on everything. It's cheap, it's good. The untap is nice as a surprise against your opponent. It also allows you to potentially block something significantly larger with +1/+3, even if you can't kill it. And so, yeah, C for me. All right. So next up, we have our other 1-cost white card. It is Esquire of the King. It is a 1 white for a 1/1 creature, human soldier. You can pay 4 colorless and 1 white and tap it. Creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. This ability costs 2 less to activate if you control a legendary creature. So it's a, I'm torn on this one. I like it, but I also don't like it for a number of reasons. I think the fact that you have to pay so much and tap it, even if you have the legendary creature, it's still free to give everything +1/+1. But I can also see that being absolutely a really good ability in a lot of circumstances. If you're playing wide with a lot of tokens, as you tend to do in white or white red. But I think overall, I'm going to start this off at a C minus.
Okay, yeah, they're doing a lot to make these 1 mana 1/1s tempting, but it is still just a 1 mana 1/1, and limited. Is that worth a card? The ability is decent, it's like you said, kind of expensive. I'm slightly lower on this. I'm at a D plus, but we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah.
Up next, we have Dundane Blade. For 1 and a white, you get an artifact equipment. Equip creature gets +2/+1. Equip human 1. Equip cost is 3. I would only play this in a humans deck. It is fairly cheap in a humans deck. It's serviceable there. The equip 3, like, it's nice. Like, you don't want to pay that. So. Synergy D plus is what I have. So in humans, I think this is a decent filler card. What do you think?
Exact same grade, exact same reasons. Even the synergy rating, it's still filler. It's otherwise an F, but like even synergy, like I'm not sure I want to waste 3 mana to give a creature +2/+1. I mean, maybe in some circumstances, but I think there's almost always going to be a better card than this.
Yep.
All right. So next up, we have Eastmark Cavalier for 1 colorless, 1 white, and you get a 2/2 creature human knight, has vigilance, and whenever Eastmark Cavalier deals damage to a goblin or orc, destroy that creature. This is a good card. 2/2 vigilance for 2 is a good card. I don't even care about that second ability that much, and it's not going to trigger that often unless you're playing against black or red, which, if so, great, it's a nice bonus. But even without it, I think this is a C+.
Agree with everything you said. I guess the second ability I think might trigger more than the tone in your voice said, but besides that, I agree that it's really the 2 mana 2/2 vigilance that I like the most about this.
Sure. Yeah. No. And yeah, it may trigger more often than I'm thinking, but I mean, even then, again, 2/2 for vigilance for 2.
Right.
Great card.
Right. Up next, we have Hobbit Sting. For 1 and a white, you get an instant. Hobbit Sting deals X damage to target creature, where X is the number of creatures you control, plus the number of foods you control. I have this as a Synergy C. I know I'm using a lot of Synergy grades, and I will say I don't typically like to do so, but the set is pretty synergistic with things. I think this is a C when you have food, and it's, maybe just good filler when not. So I gave it a Synergy C. What do you think?
So I actually have this a little higher. I have this as a synergy B minus, and the reason I have it as a synergy B minus is because not just with food, but white has a lot of tokens, or a lot of tokens in general, both food tokens, creature tokens. So if you're doing green white and you're doing food tokens, creature tokens, this is great removal. This is excellent removal, and I might take as many as 2 or 3 of these, just to have that sort of reliable removal. If you've got 2 creatures out and 2 food tokens, okay, that's going to kill 80% of what's out there, right? So yeah, I have this as a synergy B minus, but I can understand being a little bit lower on it. We'll just have to see.
Yeah, most of the reason that I am lower is the floor on this card's pretty low. If your opponent's able to kill your board and stuff like that, and this becomes a blank, then it becomes horrible. So it's just that lack of consistency. If you're losing, this doesn't help you get out of that hole. That's all.
So next up, we have Nimble Hobbit. Costs 1 colorless and 1 white. For that, you get a 1/3 creature halfling peasant. Whenever it attacks, you may sacrifice a food or pay 2 colorless and 1 white. When you do, tap target creature and opponent controls. So this is another one of those things that's a good use for a food token. That's, in my mind, almost better than gaining life from it. So I think this is another case of a synergy. I would actually put this at a synergy C+. If you're going to have a reliable food generator, I mean, I would even in some cases consider paying the 2 colorless 1 white, but that's pretty expensive. But it's good to potentially clear the path for your ring bearer. I can see some uses for it. So for me, it's going to go synergy C+.
My issue with this card is that it's trying to be aggressive with the whatever it attacks, it does the thing, and it's only a 1/3. The ring bearer might be a piece of that. Like make this your ring bearer and do some things. I don't know. It depends on how much that ring bearer thing matters. I have this as a D, so pretty significant difference there. I see where you're coming from. Yeah, I think I need to play with this a little bit as my ring bearer before I'm going to come up personally. But put me down for a D.
All right.
Up next, we have Slip on the Ring. For 1 and a white, you get an instant. Exile target creature you own, then return it to the battlefield under your control. The ring tempts you. There are some enter the battlefield items that are nice with this, and this does save a creature turned into like bad block or blanks removal type of thing. I still think it's filler though. I think it's on the good end of your filler, so I have it as a D+.
Yeah, I have it higher than that, and the reason for that is I equate this to the one back in red that what was I forget the card exactly, but it was similar protection, right? It allowed, or was it green? I can't remember, but it basically protected your creature for 2 mana. This does the same thing, but I think it has even more upside to it because it syncs with ETB and LTB effects to potentially give you, if you've got something that ETBs or LTBs gives you a food token, right? As I think there's a couple of green or white cards that do. ETB, LTB pump effects, ETB, LTB scry effects. I think there's a lot of upside to this card. And so I think this is above filler just because of that. I mean, especially if it's, an ETB ring tempts you, this also gives you a ring temp. So this is potentially 2 ring temps, plus the one you may have played with the creature earlier. So, I'm going to put this as a C to start. I may be overestimating it, but I think there's so many. This card is very versatile in my mind. It saves creatures. It triggers ETB and LTB effects in any number of decks. And so, yeah, I'm going to start out at a solid C on it.
Yeah, my thing is you need to keep the mana open to save creatures, and so it depends when you need to save it, type of thing. And I'd
Sure.
almost rather just play a 2-drop creature itself rather than having to save something with this. So that's why you'll see a pattern with my grades where anything that doesn't add to the board or directly remove something from the board, so like tricks, like blink effects, things like that, I give a little bit lower. But I see where you're coming from. It's not a bad way to spend your 2 mana when you have that available.
Yeah, yeah. No, and for me, it would be a situation where if I have this in my hand, I'm going to do everything I can to keep that mana available in case, especially if I'm playing against like black or red. I'm going to know, hey, removal could be coming at any minute, and I'm going to try and keep that available. But like, yeah, you're right. That does come at cost, right? That means that maybe I'm not playing another creature to keep that mana available, and
Right.
so yeah, I can definitely see it. But yeah, I still like it. We'll see though. I mean, I may come down on it as we go through and actually see it in action.
Okay. Up next, we have 2 Creeper. For 1 and a white, you get a 2/1 Halfling Peasant creature. When 2 Creeper dies, the ring tempts you. That's an okay rate. It's nice to get the tempt bonus. It's a little bit understated with the 2 power, or sorry, the 2 toughness. Not having 2 toughness, I mean.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I give it a C minus. What do you think?
Same grade, same reasons. C minus, pretty much all you have to say about it.
Okay.
All right. Next up, we have Westfold Rider. It is 1 white, 1 colorless for a 3/1 creature human knight. Sacrifice Westfold Rider, destroy target artifact or enchantment, activate only as a sorcery. So, for the same reasons we just discussed with 2 Creeper, this is a little bit better in every way, right? Obviously 2 Creeper has the LTB effect of tempting with the ring, but it's less powerful. And so this one, I kind of compare it to 2 Creeper, and I say this is just slightly better to me, and I would give this a C.
Completely agree. Same grade. It's nice tagging a 3/1 onto a disenchant. It still has the 1 toughness. So yeah, Sorcery Clause does hurt this quite a bit.
Yes. Because you can't block with it and then sacrifice. So, but the thing I'm thinking about it is there are not as many artifacts and enchantments that I would want to use that ability on. There are some certainly that I would see this and be like, yeah, I'm getting rid of that pretty quickly. So I'm just mostly looking at it as a pretty good, attacker to take something out that's much bigger than it.
Agreed. C.
All right.
Up next, we have East Farthing Farmer. For 2 and a white, you get a 2/3 Halfling Peasant creature. When East Farthing Farmer enters the battlefield, create a food token. When you do, target creature you control gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each food you control. It's playable when you're in a food deck. I mean, 2/3, 4/3 isn't horrible. It's slightly understated. Yeah, and sometimes you're giving something +1/+1 until end of turn. So I got a synergy C minus.
Sure. Yeah. No. I have it a little bit higher. I put this generally as a synergy C because I think if you're playing, I could see some uses for this. I mean, we can talk about it comboing with other things like Slip on the Ring, right? If later in the game for 5 mana, you play East Farthing Farmer, you play Slip on the Ring. Let's say you've got a couple of food tokens. This is the kind of situation where you could potentially give a creature like +6/+6 or +7/+7 from this entering the battlefield twice. I mean, that's potentially game ending.
Yep.
It's going to happen every time, but I do think it's decent enough that if you're playing a food deck and if this comes into play, and you've got 2 or 3 food tokens out, I think it kind of, really helps this card. So I'm going to go with a Synergy C.
You talk me up, bump me up to Synergy C.
All right. All right, so next up we have Errand Rider of Gondor. It is 2 colorless and 1 white for a 3/2 creature human soldier. When Errand Rider of Gondor enters the battlefield, draw a card. Then if you don't control a legendary creature, put a card from your hand on the bottom of your library. So this, and I think we chatted about this before, this to me is like a poor man's Inspiring Overseer. It's certainly not as good as Inspiring Overseer, but to me, it's still a good card. Any card that can replace itself. It does have that downside about not having a legendary creature. I'm not sure how often that will come into play because you will probably either have a tempt or you'll have a legendary creature from another source. So I'm not sure that. I think more often than not, this will just be draw a card. In which case, I like it, and I like it as a C+.
I even went a little further. I think this draws me into it. I got a B- on this one.
That's fair. Yeah, I'm not sure it draws me in, but I could. I'll have to see. Right, I'll have to see how often this comes up.
Up next, we have Fog on the Barrow Downs. For 2 and a white, you get an enchant creature. Enchanted creature is a spirit and can't attack or block. Pacifism's okay, type of thing. This one costs 3. And it makes it even less playable. I have a hard time putting removal to be too low until it's like your 5 mana type of removal. So therefore, I just gave this one a C-. But what do you think?
Agree, 100%. C-. I think it's worse than your average removal, but I would certainly give this a look, especially in white, or if I was doing like white-blue, there's not as much removal in that, so I'd probably give this a long, hard look as a decent way to basically take a creature out of play. Obviously, it still has its activated abilities, but, for all intents and purposes, this is still pretty decent removal. All right, so next up, we have Knight of the Keep. Knight of the Keep is 2 colorless, 1 white for a 3/2. And that's all it is. So given that, if your standard test is mana cost equals power toughness, this is slightly short of that, so I give it a C-.
Yeah, I would even put it in the filler camp. I think this is a D+. It's nice that it's a human, so there's synergies there. But
that's true.
But yeah, we've seen better cards for 3 mana, and D+ is what I got.
That's fair.
Up next, we have Second Breakfast. For 2 and a white, you get an instant. Up to 2 target creatures each get +2/+1 until end of turn. Create a food token. It's actively good if you can engineer killing 2 creatures and saving at least 1. All other times it's expensive, but it has kind of a low floor when you can't quite do all that. Therefore, I gave this a D+. What do you think?
I'm slightly higher on it at a C-, as tends to be true with our differences on tricks,
Yeah.
But I agree, right? If you don't have 2 creatures to do this to, then, hey, it's just overcosted. If you do have 2 creatures to do it to, it's still expensive, and you got to save the mana for it and for when you want it, but I think it's a little bit better than filler. But yeah, I can see where you're coming from on it. All right, next up we have Now for Wrath, Now for Ruin. And it gives, so it is 3 colorless, 1 white, sorcery. Put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. They gain vigilance until end of turn, and the ring tempts you. This is a good card, right? I think this, for me, I may be overrating this, right? I think that but I do think it, draws me into the color a little bit, so I would put it at a B-.
Yeah, I have 2 differences in this card with you. The first is, you said it wrong. It has to be Now for Wrath, Now for Ruin!
All right, that's fair.
That's the first one. Second one is, uh, yeah, these things aren't quite anthems, right? Because like they
Yes.
have to put the creatures in first and then put that on, and yeah, basically your +1/+1 is not consistent. They do gain Vigilance into End of Turn, and the Ring tempts you, which is all nice, but these kind of effects don't typically play out very well in limited, especially if you are behind. This doesn't really help you at all. So I'm willing to bet this is actually going to be on the lower end of the grades, sort of thing. Like I don't think this is that great. I think you may actively want to play one in like your humans deck because it's all low cost. The creatures go wide. Like I'm not saying it's horrible, but I have Synergy D+. I think you will fit this in as one of your cards in your humans deck and not really anything else.
You say D plus or B plus?
D plus.
D as in dog. All
D as
right.
in
Yeah.
dog. Yeah, I think it's a fairly bad card. I will play it in my humans though, uh,
Okay.
unless I have a whole bunch of other great stuff.
All right.
Up next, we have Proctor of Gondor. For 3 and a white, you get a 3/3 human soldier creature. When Protector of Gondor enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. Multiple humans in one card is nice. While it's 4 mana, I do kind of like it. And the humans go wide, humans trigger type of thing. I think this is just a solid C, a good playable. What do you think?
Same. I mean, I have the same rating for the same reason. I go back and forth because normally for 4 mana I'd want that 4/4 because that 4/4 is going to be able to it outweight classes other things. Where a 3/3 and a 1/1 don't necessarily do that. But again, like you said, it's 2 humans, right? So it synergizes well with the color. So yeah, I think solid C. All right. So next up we have Soldier of the Grey Host. It costs 3 colorless, 1 white for a 2/2 creature spirit soldier. It has flash, it has flying, and when it enters the battlefield, target creature gets +2/+0 until end of turn. This one's a weird one. It's a soldier, which is nice, and so that helps play a little bit. It's flying, which is nice, but I'm really not sure on the utility of it for the cost. I like that it has flash. I like that it could potentially give something +2/+0, but like the problem with that is it's not going to necessarily save its life. It may help it kill something else. But overall, I have this as a D+.
Same grade for the same reasons. Yeah, it can potentially kill something, but it isn't straight removal, and it's a really expensive Windrake otherwise. D+.
Yeah. Yeah.
Up next, we have Banish from Endoros. For 4 and a white, you get a sorcery. This spell costs 2 less to cast. If it targets a tapped creature, exile target creature. So this is, in my mind, like a D+ if you have to pay 5, but a C if you have to pay 3. The flexibility is good on which you want to do, the tap creature or the not tap creature, but it's not an instant either, so I have this as a C-.
Same. Agree with 100% of what you said. I have it is, okay white removal is literally my note. I think because it's sorcery, you'll probably more often be able to get away with paying 3 on it because you'll play it on something that your opponent has just attacked with. But the problem being is if you're trying to remove something that your opponent doesn't want to attack with because it's serving another purpose, then it gets much harder and much more expensive to use. So yeah, I think C-. All right. So next up, we have Stalwarts of Osgiliath. It costs 4 colorless, 1 white for a 4/3 human soldier. When it enters the battlefield, the ring tempts you. And whenever you draw your second card each turn, put a +1/+1 on counter on Stalwarts of Osgiliath. So this is something that, and we talked about this a little bit in previous episodes, really syncs well with the Ring Bearer. The second ability on the ring tempts you, which basically turns your Ring Bearer into a looter whenever he attacks, or she attacks, I guess. Draw a card and discard a card. So there's your second card each turn. And then this gets a +1/+1 counter. So I think overall, although it's a little underpowered, it helps get you to that next level of the ring tempts you, and it will probably get pumped fairly quickly. So I have this overall as a C.
Okay. I am quite a bit different on this one. Given it's a 5 mana big creature, you are totally right that you can probably trigger the draw a card quite a bit, so this will pump up bigger. But it does take, your next turn at least to get up even to a 5/4, and ultimately it's just a big 5 mana creature. So I'd probably put it too low at like a D minus. It's probably more a D. I'll come up to a D, but that's my grade.
Sure. Although I will say it doesn't necessarily take until your next turn to make it bigger, because you could play it pre-combat on your turn, attack with your ring bearer, you draw your second card, it immediately becomes
That's a good.
a 5/4. But yeah, I hear where you're coming from for it. I may be rating it too high as a C, but I think that it certainly has, to my mind, it has potential to get pretty big if you're attacking every turn with your ring bearer. But your opponent could just deny that by killing your ring bearer in some way, shape, or form. So I'm not sure. We'll have to see.
Yep. Up next, we have Eagles of the North, and it's our last card for the commons. We have it at a 5 colorless and 1 white for a 3/3 bird soldier creature with flying. When Eagles of the North enters the battlefield, creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain first strike until end of turn. It has plane cycling 1. Similar to the rest of these land cyclers, it's flexible. It's this one's a decent finisher. I don't think it's as good of a finisher as a lot of the others that we've seen. When it's a great finisher, I tend to give them B minuses. When they're bad finishers, I've given them a C. And I think this one's kind of in the middle. I think this is a C plus. What do you think?
I have it rated a little bit lower at a C. I think I generally agree with everything you're saying. The note I have on this is I wish it had flash. If it had flash, it would be, to my mind, an excellent card. And I don't think it would make it necessarily too overpowered for the cost, because you're paying 6 for a 3/3 flyer. But at common, maybe so. Maybe it would be better in an uncommon at that level. But that's my major complaint about it, is that it doesn't have flash. So yeah, I think a C.
Yeah, that's fair. Let's move on to our uncommons.
All right, so now we're on to the uncommons here, and first up is You Cannot Pass.
There we go.
So it costs 1 white, instant, destroy target creature that blocked or was blocked by a legendary creature this turn. I love this card. I think it's great. I'm probably overrating it, but I like it at a B minus. I think it's just really great removal. You're going to have legendary creatures. You get to kind of somewhat decide here. Something blocks your ring bearer, you don't like it, it's gone. You decide you want to use it on the defensive, just save a legendary creature block. Okay, whatever's attacking is gone for 1 mana. And to me, that can't be overstated. So yeah, I like it at a B minus.
Yeah, I hear where you're coming from. I think the truth is going to be somewhere in between what we say. It's very efficient. My issue is I hate the condition of your removal needing to be blocked by something or blocking something. So I have this as a D plus. I'm probably low, but I really like my removal just to snipe off whatever without that conditional setup. So put me in at D plus. I admit the truth is probably in between, and I'm very likely to come up on this. But my hot take is that this is not that good. We'll see who's
That's
right.
Fair. I mean, I effectively looked at it as a Swords to Plowshares. I might be wrong in looking at it that way. Obviously, it has conditions, but I do think that condition is going to be fairly often able to be met. You may have to engineer it a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah, just Swords of Plowshares, I think, would be like a B rating for me. And that's how much different I think this is. But I see the comparison is apt that it is still the 1 mana removal. That condition, I think, brings it all the way down to the D plus for me. But we'll see. It's probably better than what I'm making it out to be.
No, I could be very off on it, but...
My only other thing on that last card, I pulled up the new one, but why is not You Shall Not Pass? Isn't that could they not?
So You Cannot Pass is the way it appears in the book. You Shall Not Pass is the way it is in the movies. So,
All right, I've only
little piece
watched
of
the
Lord of the
movies.
Rings trivia there for all our viewers.
There we go.
But
All right, I thought it might be like some kind of IP thing, but I'm like, the IP's there clearly. They're not breaking anything, so they're staying true to the books. All right, that's good to know. All right, up next we have Lost to Legend. For white, you get an instant put target non-land historic permanent into its owner's library, fourth from the top. So this is very interesting to compare against that last card, because it doesn't have that condition. It's double the cost, and two of the same mana color. I have this as a C.
And historic permanent, right?
And
So you can
historic.
only target legendaries.
Yeah.
So there's that limitation in terms of what you can target with it,
Right.
which is, yeah. I mean, I have this as a C. So I think we agree on that one. It's still decent removal. I happen to think though that you cannot pass is better, right? I think it has more valid targets, although it does have that condition. I just think, if I have this in my hand, I'm going to be trying to engineer that situation. Or sorry, if I have you cannot pass, I'll be trying to engineer that situation versus this where you really can't engineer the situation. There just has to be a valid target, which really kind of limits its use. But that said, you can always use it on your opponent's ring bearer. So
Right. Yeah, I think this has enough targets, and I like that non-conditional setup thing. But for all the other reasons, I don't think it's higher than a C, right? Like, for all the reasons you said. So, yep, C sounds good.
Yeah. So next up, we have another sort of form of removal, which is reprieve. For one colorless and one white instant, return target spell to its owner's hand and draw a card. So, I mean, this obviously has a multitude of different uses. It's essentially an unsummon in some ways, but it's also almost a counter spell in some ways, but not really a counter because it just goes back to their hand and they can play it later again or next turn, right? And I'm not usually a fan of this kind of removal. It is good in some circumstances, but I think it's very situational. So I tend to go with something like a D+ for this.
Okay, I'm quite a bit higher on this one. I have a very similar note, not quite a counter spell, but close in that it doesn't counter the thing. The opponent's threat's going to come back, but you get something in return with the draw card. So it's kind of like a reverse counter spell. But I like this card. I'm going to be playing quite a bit. It doesn't pull me into white, but I have this at a C+. So we'll see where this ends up. I can't remember us ever seeing a card like this that does this thing and draws you a card. Don't have like a lot of experience to draw on here. It'll be interesting to see how this works in practice.
Yeah, I think you've talked me up maybe to a C- on it. I'm still not sure on it, but yeah, the draw, I think I've underrated the draw on it a little bit. So I think I can go up to a C-. But yeah, I mean, I'm just not sure. I would prefer my removal to be permanent. I would not like it to be just something like, oh, okay, well, you're just going to play it again. Same thing kind of goes for Lost to Legend, right? Like at least that lasts a couple of turns, right? Because it's going to go in their deck versus just back to their hand. So yeah, I'm not sure. We'll see how it ends up in play though.
Yeah. Maybe one more note on this one. I like its flexibility in that it can kind of act as like you can hold it up and it can act like an Orm's Chant kind of in a way that replaces itself. Basically they can't play spells this turn. It obviously depends if they're trying to double spell or not. So at least you have that flexibility though. Like you can hold this up and pretty reliably. Like they're going to do something on their turn. Make sure they can't and you're not really down a card. And in the best case, they might be engineering some combat situation where they can beat you out, and you're like, no, you can't, and I eat your creature. So I think it's like it's high floor, pretty high ceiling too. That's all.
Sure. Yeah, and we've talked a lot about this one, but let me add one more note. Right.
Yeah.
There are some situations where I could see this being somewhat useful. Right. So you have the situation of doubling or copying spells, right? If you're in blue or something, you have, copy the next spell you cast this turn. All right, so you let them play the first one, and then you reprieve the second one, and all of a sudden they've wasted all of their mana and gotten neither of their copied spells, right? So yeah, you're right. Ceiling is high.
Yeah.
You could do some really fun stuff with this and really screw with people. But I'm just not sure that situation will come up as often as you'd like to see it. So
that's fair. It'll be a fun one to play with. That's for sure. All right. Up next, we have Samwise the Stout-Hearted. For 1 and a white, you get a 2/1 Halfling Peasant legendary creature. It has Flash. When Samwise the Stout-Hearted enters the battlefield, choose up to 1 target permanent card in your graveyard that was put there from the battlefield this turn, return it to your hand, then the ring tempts you. I just think this is a super efficient card. I mean, a 2/1 Flash for 2 is fine, and then the fact that it can save something that did die, and the ring tempts you, I just have this as a straight B. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, this one was tough for me because looking at it, I'm just like, does this tempt me to play white on its own? And I'm not sure. Like, it might. I don't know. It's good. It's certainly very good. But you know, so I have it really as a borderline B minus C plus. I think, you know, hearing your case for it, I'll probably go with B plus. Like it probably does. Just because, hey, yeah, it's super efficient. Like you said, it's super efficient in a 2-cost package, right? It does so much. You may not always have all of those things to do, right? You may not have a permanent in graveyard if you play this turn 2, right? But even then, it's a 2/1 Flash, which is not bad for 2. So yeah, I'll go with B minus.
Okay.
All right. So next up, we have Shire Sheriff. Try saying that one 3 times fast. But he is he costs 1 colorless, 1 white. You get a 2/2 Halfling Soldier with Vigilance. When Shire Sheriff enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice a token. When you do, exile target creature an opponent controls until Shire Sheriff leaves the battlefield. All right, so yeah, I like this card a lot. This is just a really good card in my. I mean, it's good if it's like for me, a 2/2 with Vigilance for 2 is going to be a C plus. But I think that extra ability, given the prevalence of things like food tokens and soldier tokens in white, the ability to just sacrifice a 1/1 and exile whatever creature you want, that's fantastic. So yeah, for me, this is a B minus.
Yeah, so I'm not so sure that this card is playable. I'm joking. I got a B plus on this card. Yeah, it's great. For all the reasons you said, I don't really have anything to add.
Yeah, I may be underrating it. I just don't know. I don't know how prevalent it will be for you to have the token, right? But if you do, it's just it's absolutely it's almost a bomb in a lot of ways to be able to just take something off the board, get a 2/2 Vigilance like for 2 mana. That's great, but yeah, I may be underrating it. We'll see.
Yeah, what typically pulls me up from a B to a B plus is the card advantage potential of a card. So I think this does enough to make this to the B plus range in my mind. It's not a bomb for all the reasons you said about the consistency of a token. There's a lot of tokens in the set though, so I do think it'll be fairly consistent. Thus, I gave it a B plus. But yeah.
I think the other thing for me that kind of prevents me from bringing it up is it's somewhat easy to kill.
Yeah.
And being somewhat easy to kill, they get their creature back at that point.
Yep.
So I mean, I may be wrong on it, but yeah. Anyways,
I can see a B grade. Yep. You should give that B minus. What did you give that for it?
I went with B minus.
Okay.
Yeah, I went with B minus.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair. Yeah. Anywhere in that range, it seems reasonable. So.
Yeah.
All right. Up next, we have Eowyn, Lady of Rohan. For 2 and a white, you get a 2/4 human noble legendary creature. At the beginning of combat on your turn, target creature gains your choice of First Strike or Vigilance until end of turn. If that creature is equipped, it gains First Strike and Vigilance until end of turn instead. Equip abilities you activate cost 1 less to activate. It's a good card. Decent stats, 2/4 for 3. I like it. It doesn't quite draw me into white. I have this at a C plus.
Yeah, I have it as C plus as well for the same reasons you said. The odds of you, there's not a ton of equipment in the set.
Yeah.
So, the odds of the equipment abilities coming into play are, I think, a little bit less than you would think. And, but either way, something's getting either First Strike or Vigilance. It's probably not getting both, but either of those abilities is great. And the fact that you get to choose is even better, right? Depending on your situation. If they've got something out that they're going to block with, you choose the First Strike. If they've got something that you want to protect against, you choose the Vigilance. There's good. It's good options. It gives you options, and I like cards that give you options. So yeah, C plus. All right. Next up, we have Rosie Cotton of South Lane. So 2 colorless, 1 white, for a 1/1. When Rosie Cotton of South Lane enters the battlefield, create a food token. And whenever you create a token, you put a +1/+1 counter you control on a creature you control other than Rosie. This one was another kind of tough one for me. 3 mana for a 1/1 isn't great. Getting a food token, also not great. Although you do get a +1/+1 counter immediately when she enters the battlefield on another creature. So it's effectively like 3 mana for a 2/2. It'll all depend on how often that extra ability triggers. If you can trigger it 2 or 3 more times, I think it's a great card. If you can't, then it's not. So I'm going to go with a Synergy C+ on this.
Yeah, again, with trying to trust R&D that this food thing will work, clearly they're putting in support for it, right? So I was Synergy B- that if you're doing the food thing, if you want to do the food thing, you're going to want this card. So Synergy B- it is.
All right.
Up next, we have Bill the Pony. For 3 and a white, you get a 1/4 legendary creature horse. When Bill the Pony enters the battlefield, create 2 food tokens. Sacrifice a food. Until end of turn, target creature you control assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. I went through an evolution on this card. So at first, this card reads pretty bad. It's got bad stats. And it can temporarily be okay. Like, it supports itself as kind of a 4/4 for a little bit. For 4. But in the food deck, you want food to come into play, and you should try to have a ton of it. It doesn't pull me into the food thing. But this might be a Synergy C+. In that food thing, you might want this one. So, again, trying to be optimistic for food, Synergy C+. What do you think?
Yeah, I think about the same. I didn't originally give this a Synergy grade. I just rated it a C-, but which I think is about right if you're not playing a food deck, because it essentially is a wall almost. Although, interestingly, Bill the Pony would be an interesting ring bearer, right?
Right.
An interesting ring bearer because he's a 1/4, so he's going to be very hard to kill. But then you have the option post, blockers being declared to be like, no, actually, he's going to deal 4 damage to something. I don't know. I mean, this is going to be a weird situation. Like, is Bill the Pony the ultimate ring bearer?
Right.
Is this the question?
I feel like this might be an R&D miss. Like, how does the ring fit on the pony?
Yeah, how is the pony wearing this ring? But it would be really interesting to see Bill the Pony as a ring bearer. Just smacking things around for 4. But yeah, I think I'll go with a Synergy C+ as well. But yeah, this could be a fun card.
So I have to call another podcaster. His name is Seer Kovitz. Some of the audience might know who he is. He is another data analyst that gets into analyzing limited. He basically plays with 17 lands data all day. And in his podcast, he brought up there was a Lord of the Rings game that was a card game of some sort that obviously separate from Magic, but it had Bill the Pony in it. And funny enough, Bill the Pony was like the biggest bomb in the whole set. Like, it didn't look like it, but he was. And I wonder if that's what's secretly happening here. This is actually just an A.
Yeah.
Put the ring on him.
I don't know. I mean, with all the food tokens, right? Like, this ability to give him the ability to do 4 damage, but still only be blocked by things with power 1 or less, right? Like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, he's an interesting card like that. I don't know. I mean, we'll see what happens.
it would be awesome if you could double this up, or like make him the ring bearer, and then +3/+3 or +4/+4 with food, like over and over again type of thing. So unblocked, get on in, and then wreak havoc.
Sure, yeah.
But anyway,
right.
It would clearly be
give him,
broken
like,
in
the
that case.
Galadriel bow. Give him somehow he's got a bow. I don't know.
Yeah.
He's a pony with a bow,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah, but he doesn't have that in the artwork. Yeah. Well, anyway, so Bill the Pony is just okay.
yes.
All right.
Right. So next up we have Faramir, Field Commander. He costs 3 colorless, 1 white, for a 3/3 legendary creature, human soldier. At the beginning of your end step, if a creature died under your control this turn, draw a card. Whenever the ring tempts you, if you chose a creature other than Faramir, Field Commander, as your ring bearer, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. So 3/3 for 4, generally a little bit below sort of the vanilla test, but his ability is he has his 2 abilities. If you have a sacrifice outlet, that's great. This is pretty good card advantage. And if you have a lot of ring temps you, this could generate a lot of tokens for you. But I think overall, I would probably rate him as just a C standard. Like I'm tempted to say C- just because he's a little bit less power and toughness, but I figure his abilities will probably come into handy sometimes. So that brings it up to a C to me overall.
Yeah, this is, so you're right on this being understated for sure. But I think the abilities are enough to make this a B in my mind. I think it's not going to be hard to get the draw card effect, and a 4 mana 3/3 draw card is good. Especially when you have likely a bunch of small humans running around and you might just want to trade one of those human tokens for a card type of thing. Like, there's a cost there, but you could attack on in and get it eaten up. I mean, that might be... I guess watch out for this, right? If someone's attacking you, it doesn't make any sense. They might be setting something like this up. So, but it'll work for a while in the set when people don't know what's going on. And so you can kind of trade the 1/1 for a card, and then it also later on with ring temps, gets a little better. You can replace the human that you sent on in or whatever. So I think it does enough to be a B, but later on in the set, this might fall down a little bit more if you can't reliably do the draw card thing.
Sure, yeah. And I may be underrating it. I don't know. But, yeah, I don't know.
All right. Up next, we have Landroval Horizon Witness. For 4 and a white, you get a 3/4 bird noble legendary creature with flying. Whenever 2 or more creatures you control attack a player, target attacking creature without flying gains flying until end of turn. It's a better version than your typical 5 mana, 3 power flyers, but it's still not something I'm prioritizing. I think it does enough to pull it from like the D plus range type of thing up to a C-, but I think it's a low end playable. So C-. What do you think?
Yeah, I have this a little bit higher, I think, at a C. Just because of its ability, right? So basically, it's going to be one of the attacking creatures, and then any other creature attacking. Now you have 2 flyers. That could be a small creature, but it could also be your ring bearer. It could also be anything else that you really something huge with flying, an army with flying, a flying army. Whatever that mental picture looks like in your mind. So I think it's a little bit better than that, but I still think it's a pretty average playable in my mind. So C.
You talked me up to a C. Change my grade.
All right. And last we have a saga in Tale of Tenuviel. Very expensive saga at 3 colorless and white. So first round on the saga, you get target creature you control gains indestructible for as long as you control Tale of Tenuviel. Second round, second turn, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. And final round, up to 2 target creatures you control each gain lifelink until end of turn. So this is, again, I kind of hinted at it too. This is really expensive. That said, this could be part of your, last 3 turns of the game. Maybe you play it turn 5, turn 6. You're going to get a creature that is indestructible for 2 turns. So that's a free attacker, whether it's your ring bearer or something else. I could see, uses for that. You're going to get a recurrence from graveyard to the battlefield. That could be something you land cycle. That could just be another creature. There's a lot of ETB effects in white, so you could get a creature with a bonus. And then the final round, the creature will lose indestructible. So that's something to keep in mind, because that will happen at the beginning of your main phase. But you'll get 2 creatures with life. All that said, I think this is a pretty average playable. I would maybe pick up one of these as a sort of, it's not really a finishing creature, but it helps you maybe get across the line. So I would rate this about a C.
Yeah, I have a C too for all the same reasons. It's pretty powerful, but it's slow. But if you have time to take advantage of it, it does give you a lot for 1 card, yes. While you're talking through it, I was wondering in my head if the land cyclers are enough to pull this into be like a C+. So I'm kind of in between those grades. I'll start it off as a C, though, with you.
Yeah, and it may well be, right? Like, you can get a couple of those common land cyclers, especially if you're playing some of the better ones in there. The white one, I think we said, was not, like, the best. Yeah. But I think, if you're playing the red one, the Oliphant, pretty good one, right? That's going to give you, it gives you +2/+0. It's a 6/4 trampler in itself, and then it gives other things +2/+0. So, there are some good options there. Plus, right, you could even play those land cyclers and not play that color and use this card, right? You may have zero red lands in your deck, and you can put the Oliphant in it and then bring it out with something like this. So there are definitely options. But yeah, I'll start it at a C.
Yeah, change me to a C+. I'm just going to try to be optimistic on this. I just talked you
up at the end there. Yeah.
I was on the border, and I really like those land cyclers. Yeah. So, again, not that this doesn't pull me into white still, but I think I want to be picking it, and I want to be trying this one out. Yeah, with the land cyclers.
Yeah, it could be a fun combo. We'll see. That does it for all of the white commons and uncommons. Still on the deck, we have the blue commons and uncommons, and then we'll have our episode on the rares and mythics for all colors. So please don't forget to do like and subscribe so that you'll see when the next episode is coming up, and we look forward to seeing you in the next one.
See ya.
Bye.